Hello and welcome to another test-driven development session in this quest to understand Laravel collections a bit better for preparation for an upcoming certification exam down the line. How far down the line we don't know, but we're essentially working towards it as much as possible and as time allows. Yeah, so let's get right into it. So for tonight, what I have is the ask is to essentially write a, oops, Daisy, that's a little bit small, is to write a function that takes an array of numbers and it multiplies each number by the multiple and returns the resulting array. Okay, so we've got some information points right there. And also we need to show that we are working with collections, making use of helper methods that Laravel also kindly provides when working with collections. So you need to keep that in mind. But as always, we're going to be doing this now in a test-driven development way, that extra curveball that I've instituted for myself to see if I can't develop a more sought after style of development, which is writing your test first and then writing your code. So let's do this. Also, if my words and reasonings a bit slurred, it's shooting this quite late at night. It's been a busy day, but I really just want to continue with this these exercises. So let's do it. All right, so that is our exercise in question. I'm going to drop that to the one side. Old faithful Google in the background should we need it, and then let's do this. All right, so test-driven development. First things first, we're still using from the previous videos, still using the collection service that we wrote. So I will be extending the collection services test in this session. So let us get that. Here's my CLI to my Docker container. I'm just going to clear that, and then we're going to do PHP artisan test. And since we're only interested in the test file in particular, we're only going to be writing that collection service test. See if that runs. Perfect, runs. All green flags, nothing's changed. Happiness. Before the session, I made sure I had all my local or the latest code on my local dev environment. And so here we go. All right, so we need to move towards solving this exercise. All right, so let us then write a function, a testing function, public function test, multiply all is the function's name. There we go. We've got that collection service helper, so we're actually going to give that a go. So let's do results equals collection service helper function we wrote many weeks ago. Those are the methods you can call off of it, but we are going to try and call the multiply all method, which takes an array of numbers 1, 2, 3, and let's give it a number of 4, and then we will be asserting that that succeeds. So the question was, just bring that up again, given an array of numbers, multiply each number by the multiple and return the resulting array. Okay, so that's simple enough. So in other words, we will be asserting that this assert equals. Does assert equals make sense? Will it evaluate all the various items? Actually, let us do it like this. So results, the first result should be equal to, so if we multiply 1 and 4, we should be expecting 4. So there is our first test. That should fail right now, most likely telling us that such a method does not exist. Okay, perfect. So we've got our failing test. And like we said, so there's the undefined method error that we were expecting, because this method does not yet exist on the service. Okay, so we need to write the minimum code that will get this to pass. So let's head up the collection service helper method, which takes us to the collection service itself. And the minimum code to get this to pass would be to declare the function, and so we will be doing array numbers, type hinting save lives, int multiple, and the return type expect is going to be array. So got you over there, and then the minimum code to get that test to pass should be just that. Let's give that a spin. Clear. Oh, there we go. Cool to undefined method. Multiply all. What did I do? There you go. Multiply. I think now my spelling is a bit better. Great. Thanks for fee unit testing. Multiply all. Yeah. Late night spelling. Oh my word. Multiply all. That looks a lot better. I think I've said that so many times tonight. Got you down. So let's get that one. Let's just clear the CLI. And there we go. It passes. But right now, I think we all know that I'm cheating this a bit. Cheating the test. So again, the test passes at the moment. So now would be an opportunity to refactor, but it's such little code that right now I think we can go straight to making this test fail. So this assert equals, so if we take results and we ask it for the second value in the results set, 4 times 2 would be 8. Let's see if that passes. Undefined array key. Yes, I see. Why did you not? Ah, yes. Okay, no, so that's perfect. It still fails, right? Because we know it's just failing with a different error message than I think we would have expected. But that makes sense because we're passing back an array with one key, yet we're trying to read the second key off of it, and that's why it's failing. So in theory, the minimum code that we need to write to get this to pass is just that. So let's do that, and it passes again. So we could theoretically continue with test on to test 3, but then we'd have the same kind of repeating pattern until we've basically mocked out the full answer. So what is nice about this approach is it inherently gets you to write more than one test scenario, because in actuality, it seems like you can always cheat a single test data set by just hard coding the return. Now, sure, perhaps in practice we might not do that, or we might not aim to do that because it would be senseless. I mean, why would we want to write production code that just does that? But it does make our test more robust. It does force us to think of more than one scenario, which I'm pretty sure will have benefits in the future. So let us then do a second bit. So we'll do results A, hit that one up like that, and then we'll do a results B section, and this will be 4, 3, and 2, and the multiple will be 2, which then means this assert equals, so we'll be doing result B 0 we are expecting it to be equal to 8. Okay, and we'll just do a second one for completeness sake, to expecting it to be 6. So now we've put ourselves in a position where we can't hard code the output to cheat the test. And there we go. Failed asserting that 8 matches expected 4. Perfect. So now we need to go write the minimum code to make this pass. Perfect. All right. So the minimum code needed would be to basically multiply every element in the list. Okay. But also we need to show that we are using collections. So let's start by doing that. Numbers, collection, then again, numbers, collection equals, I'm just noticing that I'm not really following a pattern here. I guess that's what passes are good for, but let's do numbers, collection equals collect. Collect, and you can collect numbers for me, please. There we go. And then, as far as I am aware, so this is quite an interesting one. We're not passing it by reference, so that shouldn't be an issue. But there is, and I just happened to read this the other day, there is a method, or there is a helper method in the collections class, which allows you to map a certain function to all values inside the collection. And I'm wondering if we can't just return that. Let's actually have a look at that. Laravel collections map. Okay, here we go. I'm just not yet on version 9, so let me just hit that one up. As far as I know, map should solve this. Because it's interesting, I also note that they told us we should return an array. So even if we're working with collections now, but we need to remember to call the toArray function. But then again, our type hinting would have also saved us, because there should be a, oopsie daisy, show me map. Oh dear, this map, no, extending collections, yes, that was the macro. Vital methods. So there's map. The map method iterates through the collection and passes each value to the given callback. The callback is free to modify. That's simple enough. And there's obviously multiple ways to do this, but I think this is fairly straightforward to, and that's essentially what we're doing as well. We're collecting an array, and then we're doing the map function to it. Interesting, item and key. Like most other collection methods, map returns a new collection instance. It does not modify the collection it is called on. If you want to transform the original, you use transform method. Yeah, that makes sense. And this is good to know. This is a general thing with collection methods, and that is that they don't actually mutate the original collection passed to it or on which the helper function is called. So in this instance, you'll use map. It'll do a bunch of things to the collection, but ultimately what's returned from this is a new collection, which is why it's being assigned to the multiplied variable over here, and then eventually being returned, which is not the case with transform. Transform mutates the original collection. So if we did transform here instead of map, then you wouldn't have needed to reassign it here. If you called collection all after using transform, then it would have essentially given you this array as well, and you would have lost this. I guess this original data is kind of, it gets overwritten in a sense. Okay, yeah, that seems straightforward enough. Okay, so we're gonna do number collection, and we're gonna map function. I'm gonna do value and key. Okay, just add a colon over there, and so we're going to be doing return value multiplied by multiple. Interesting. Did I maybe just misspell it? No, I did not. Okay. Undefined variable multiple. Geez, I had this issue the one day actually, and it had to do with the scope of the variable. How did I do this again? Oh dear. That's interesting, and I bet that's a stumbling block that they figured we'd fall into. I'm just trying to remember, how did we do this? How did I do this the last time? Was it simply a case of because I could do this multiple, but those won't link each other, so that makes sense. This is an interesting one again. Can't access multiple within that closure or anonymous function. If I give it a name, it also doesn't solve it. That is really interesting. So if we look back at the documentation, not a lot we can do around there. The map method iterates through the collection and passes its value to a given callback. The callback is free to modify the items and return it, thus forming a new collection modifying items. This is interesting. I guess Laravel callback function does not have access to variable from outside. I guess that makes sense. Access variables from within a callback function for each. Okay, so -1. This is interesting. You should use the use keyword to use it in the anonymous scope. Yeah, I saw this the first time the other day when I had a similar problem. Actually curious to learn about this now. So okay, so it's PHP specific in the sense. So anonymous functions, also known as closures, allow the creation of functions which have no specified name. They are most useful as the value of callable parameters, but they have many other uses. Anonymous functions are implemented using closure class. Alright, so there's a little more background and information. And here we go. Okay, so inheriting variables from parent scope. So these where they're saying use. Interesting. So that's the concept. So you've got to know about this use method in closures. The above example, as of PHP 8.0, the list of scope inherited variables may include a trailing comma, which will be ignored. Okay. Inheriting variables from the parent scope is not the same as using global variables. Global variables exist in the global scope, which is the same no matter what function is executing. Okay, so that's good to know. The parent scope of a closure is the function in which the closure was declared, not necessarily the function it was called from. See the following example. Alright, let's have a look at it. Callback, function, use tax and total. Not sure I understand that, but you know, for essence, at least now I know about the use. I guess the use statement. What do they call this, or what do you refer this to? You say it is the PHP inheriting from is not the same as using the above example output something like this. Inherit by reference. Inherit by reference. Okay, that's using the use statement in PHP in an anonymous function. Okay, cool. Let's do it. All right, so we're going to be doing use, and then we want to use multiple. Bingo. And then as we've mentioned before, the map helper returns a new collection. It doesn't mutate the original. So essentially we should just be able to do that, right? We should be able to return that and call this toArray. There we go. And that's again one of the amazing thing about collection helpers is you can chain the living daylights out of it. So this should be interesting because now I'm returning an array. Yeah, let's see what the test thinks of it. And the test loves it. Absolutely amazing. All right, I think that's pretty good. I would like to add some validation just for what is it? I'm just trying to think of the English word. For bonus points. Because right now this function assumes that the array that is passed is an array of numbers only. And so I think it would be irresponsible of us not to check that each item in the array is a number. Okay, so I think that's something good to add, but of course, test-driven development, we first got to write a failing test. So we will do this error, expect error. Oh yeah, and this brings us back to our learnings from last time, which is that an exception test should be isolated because the code exits on that, which also means you can't run aforementioned statements. These need to be isolated. Sorry, I'm having trouble explaining that again, but in a previous video we did, I think in the long one, the first recording, we did go into this a bit. We found that if you want to assert that errors were thrown and that certain messages were thrown, it was fine to do so, but that should be done in isolation in its own test case or its own test method, because you can't have other assertion tests and this test, because essentially this does terminate throw an error but within the test environment, and that basically stops the whole flow and kind of exits it and then evaluates it. So something like that. There's probably a better explanation out there, but the important thing is just to note that if you're testing exceptions, make sure that that's the only thing you test within that test method. So actually what's pretty awesome is we've already got some decent code. So yeah, probably not really being dry right now, but for all extensive purposes, that will just make our typing a bit quicker. All right, so we've got this expect exception, and let's just say the error message is that all numbers provided in the input array should be of type array of numbers. Should be of type, it just says numbers. It doesn't, in the question, it doesn't say integers. The multiple was specified to definitely just be an integer. So numbers must be of type double. No, yeah, this is a bit basic knowledge that's just not at my fingertips right now. Now let's just quickly go PHP data types now, because I often, especially working so much with SQL. So yeah, an integer and it's a float, because I was just also called a double. That's just what I was wondering about. Double, because that's usually the word I use. So float. Yeah, okay, cool. Sorry, basic stuff, but sometimes just can't get to it in the second. Should be of type float. There we go. So now we're just got to call the correct method, which will be the multiply all. And so we'll have a 1 and 2. Okay, so let us required parameter multiple is missing. Okay, perfect, great. Type hinting again, so live. Perfect. So now that should fail. Oh, and listen to me, also not doing what I've actually just spent a few minutes explaining. Public function test multiply all number validation. All right, so here we go. So that test should now fail, so we can clear that. Let that run. Perfect. So fail is setting that exception of type error matches exception. There we go. Perfect. So their message was unsupported operand string times int. So that's not what we were expecting. We were expecting it to give us an error with type exception and with that error message, which I'm going to copy. So let's add the minimum code needed. And just because, so there we go. That's how we did the last time. Checked if there were any items. That was a pretty good function, that one was. Okay, so what I think I will do is so let's keep working with collections, and this is the error message that we want to throw. So so we will be doing an if, and then we'll do numbers collection. We'll filter it, and the filter logic will be if it is of type function. So we'll do value. You know what? This is going to get too messy to write all of this within the if statement. So let's do this. This will be the number collection check equals numbers collection. We're gonna say filter function. Let's get that one down there. We're gonna do a value. Perfect. We got you over there. Return. Is it type? Or is it get type? Oh, there we go. Get type. So we'll do get type of value, and we want to return any that aren't equal to float. All right, that should give us that, and then we will do count, because basically we're going to be asserting whether there should be none, right? Because all values provided should be float or int. I think we should accept float or int. All right, or like that, and then what does it integer? Now I'm curious because I actually don't know whether it's get type will spit out int or. We'll find out soon enough. All right, so if number collection check is greater than 0, then we need to throw, how we do this again? Throw new type error, got you. Throw new exception. Okay, this is technically a type error. So throw new type. Wow, why doesn't the autocomplete want to work? Just quickly checking this. Yeah, capital. So it's type error. This is float or string. Got you over there. Just clean that up. Just that makes sense. Except the exception shouldn't be just exception, should be type error like we tested over here. Wow, might just be the hour, but I don't recall all of this, which is why the regular exercise is important. Let's try that out. Okay, all numbers provided in the input array should be of type float. Huh. Float or int. Float or int. So I think that's because it says integer. We might just find that it doesn't actually say. Oh, that is interesting. So let's maybe die and dump, because I'm quite curious to see what does get type for these return. Got you. Integer in lower caps. Okay, so now I'm just curious to see 0.25, right? Is a double. Okay, well today we learned. So double or integer is what the get type throws out for those two values. Should be type double, which is also, again, the whole double float thing. But okay, so now I know why the code wasn't working. And if we run that, all numbers provided in the input array should be of type int. Failed asserting that exception message, all numbers. Oh, right, because we have now changed the error message. Gotcha. So we need to update the test this time, not the other way around. Okay, so note that our exception is now, our exception test is actually passing, but we're still breaking this little one. Because it's actually filtering out. You know what I probably did wrong? Huh. You think that would work? Well, let's die and dump the. I actually don't think that's going to work right now. That's just going to tell me how many there are. But in any case, sometimes it just requires a little bit of debugging. So it's counting 3. Does not equal double or does not equal integer. And yet 1, 2, 3 should all be. Yeah, so unless I'm just not understanding the filter mechanism correctly. I just want to test this theory out. I've got a feeling I'm not understanding. So there it did return 0, right? Because they all are equals to. and an or in this context. Or it does not equal that, and it does not equal that. I can't think that this will be the difference. It should be one or the other. Ha, interesting. That was the difference. And an or operator. Let's really think that through for a bit. So we've got the and operator, which says that if this condition is true and this condition is true, then return the value. If this condition is true or this condition is true, return the number. Okay, yes, because the first one, geez, yeah, that's trippy. Oh, maybe it's just not a late night figure me out kind of thing. Because by saying and, both conditions need to be true, which in actuality, when you think about it and you read it, is more correct than or, because you need both to be true for the value to actually be returned. So it needs to not be a double and needs to not be an integer to get returned. So if you're saying it can either not be a double or it can either not be an integer, if you're saying or, then, well, the one is false, the other one's kind of assumed as true across the line, just because it can assess on either sides. Sure, I don't know. But in any case, we've got that one locked. I'm just gonna chalk that up to ghosts in the machine or something. Maybe somebody watching can help me with that one. But in any case, that should get us through the night. So let's clear, bring this across. And happiness, we've got our 9 passing tests. Cool, thanks so much. Yeah, sorry, late night session, a little bit of fatigue, but I still want to see if I can ship some more content. Cool, man.